Good evening, everyone. So, welcome to Bangalore demo training. So, coming to my profile, I'm having around 5 plus years of experience in developing user interfaces for mobile, tablet, desktop. So, I have been working for one of the top most leading industries in the market and corporate trainer for FSODM division in the same company. So I have been a part of this corporate training, which is the highest division in our company FSADM, which is a financial sector side. In this area also I'm covering all training, corporate training as well as application development and as a technical analyst. So this is about my profile. Coming to today's demo, we are going to see what is Angular and why we need to choose this Angular, how popular and how what are the versions that has been released, the Angular, and we'll see the features of Angular. And typically we have two different types of Angular. One is Angular JS and the another one is Angular. So we'll see the difference between that Angular JS and Angular versions. And finally, when we are developing this Angular application, we supposed to have these three packages. So Node.js server, npm, and Angular CLI. So we'll discuss about what exactly the Node.js, npm, and Angular CLI. And finally, we are going to use TypeScript. We are not going to use JavaScript basically. So TypeScript, we'll see, what is the difference between this TypeScript and JavaScript and why we need to use the TypeScript. Yeah, so this is our course outline, which covers all the main topics of the Angular framework. So we'll see the basics, and these are the topics which are majorly used in Angular applications. So let's start with what exactly Angular. Angular is a framework first of all, so don't confuse with language, technology, and framework. Angular is not a technology. Don't put under technology or language. Okay, Angular is just a framework. Let me tell you the difference between technology, language, and framework. So technology is basically is a group of languages. For example, I want to develop a front end. I mean, I want to develop a web application. So to develop that web application, we supposed to use some languages which are comes under front end technology. So technology is a group of languages, and language is basically behavior. I mean, grammatically, or rules that need to be used to develop that particular application. Framework means which is the superset of all this. Which is the superset of languages. Like if you see this one, HTML, CSS, and TS or JS. HTML is a markup language, right? So CSS is basically styling language, and TypeScript will be, this is also a language which is almost similar to JavaScript, but it is a superset of the JavaScript. So by combining these three languages, a DOM will be created. So what is DOM? DOM is basically document object model. Document object model means which is the hierarchy of the HTML pages. Okay, if you see the HTML pages, so we will start with the document, and then we will start with header, then section. So all these are hierarchical structure. Okay, so DOM is basically hierarchical structure of the whole HTML elements. Okay, so by combining all these things, this Angular framework has been designed. Okay, so HTML is a language, CSS is a language, and JavaScript or TypeScript is languages. By clubbing to these three languages, so they have formed a framework, so that you no need to write separate program for HTML, CSS, or all those things. So we can do all these things in one particular application, and that can be development wise it will be very faster, right? And it will be like a component based, and which is like a loosely coupled application as well. Okay, so AngularJS was originally developed in 2009 by Misco Hebere. It was not a part of Google initially. Okay, keep it in that mind that Google was not started Angular. Okay, don't keep these points in front of interviewers. So this Angular was not started by Google initially. It was started by Misco. He was started, by his own methodologies, and he has come up with that idea. After that, he joined Google. So Google actually, through Google they have released in the market. So releasing is just different, the idea and the history behind is different. Okay, so after means whatever idea that he has, so that was implemented and released through Google in 2012. That was Angular JS initially. Okay, that is not Angular, that was Angular JS. Okay, after that Angular versions have been started releasing from September 2016. Okay, so there is a 4 years of gap actually, between this one. The Angular JS architecture have been completely rewritten. Okay, so that's why there's a difference between Angular JS and Angular. We'll discuss it later. So finally, what is Angular? Angular is a platform and framework for building single place client applications using HTML and TypeScript. So Angular is written in TypeScript. It implements core and optional functionality as a set of TypeScript libraries that you import into your applications. Okay, so you might have a question that, can we use JavaScript or not? Yes, we can use it, but TypeScript is more advanced than JavaScript. But finally, this TypeScript will be transpiled into JavaScript. What is the meaning of transpilation? Transpilation, that means is like converting from one language to another language. So the whole program will be written in TypeScript, but when coming to building, you need to deploy the application, right? So at the time of building, the whole TypeScript code will be converted into JavaScript. That is called transpilation. So that is about Angular. Coming to the history. Okay, so the latest version of Angular is 12, and it's still rolling out. Okay, not stable, it's still rolling out. And it was, as I said, it was started in 2010, 16, 17. So these are the dates where that versions was released. Okay, so if you see the versions, basically AngularJS means Angular 1 1.x. Okay, Angular 1, 2, 3 was missing, right? So why 3 was missing? 4, 5, 6, it's continuous, but 3 was missing, right? So the reason behind is, if you see this diagram, see this one, these are the packages. Okay, so generally in Angular application, as I said before, we will be using packaging. We will be using dependencies. Okay, so those will be stored under node modules. If you see the versions of those, Angular Core 2.3.0, Angular Compiler 2.3.0, CLI 2.3.0, HTTP 2.3.0, and coming to Router 3.3.0. Okay, so it was already in third version, but there were many changes happen in the router only. Okay, so in the third version, when after the second Angular second version, major changes have been happened in the third, router only, but it's still in third version. To mislead that, so what they have done, they decided to go straight for Angular v4. Okay, in case if there were no changes in the router, maybe they would have continued, but due to some conflicts, the misalignment of the versions, so they have skipped that Angular 3, and they move forwarded to Angular 4. Coming to features. So we have seen what is Angular, and we have seen the versions. What are the versions have been introduced so far, and let's see why what are the features that are majorly involved in Angular. Okay, so these all are the major features: data binding and faster load, simplified MVC pattern. So most of I hope MVC is basically a model view controller. This is a architecture style. Okay, you don't think it is something else. So MVC is basically architecture style. Okay, after MVC we have one more architecture style as well, that is MVVM, model view model. Okay, this one is model view controller, which means that view is basically presentation, right? Like whatever that we are going to present, that will be comes under view. Okay, so controller is just like it is like a interface. Okay, to send the data from model to view, it acts as a interface. Model is basically that is where actually the data presents. Okay, so cross platform, simple and expressive. What is the meaning of cross platform? Cross platform is basically, if you take browsers, Chrome browser or Mozilla. So in Chrome we use V8 engine, right? But coming to Mozilla we use something else. We are not writing the code for we are not specifically writing the code for Chrome browser. So whatever code that we are going to write, that's supposed to execute in every browser. Okay, not in single browser. Okay, so it's supposed to be executed in every browser. So it take care of that. Okay, cross platform. But when you're developing the application by using HTML CSS, you supposed to add some more attributes, right? You no need to mention all those things here. And coming to next feature is simple and expressive, speed and performance, maximum users, flexible development, and one page application. So this is the key thing actually. So whenever Angular comes into your mind, so you always you always listen this single page application as well. Okay, so what is the meaning of single page application here? Single page application is also a web application that interacts with the user by dynamically rewriting the current web page with new data from web server. Okay, so the main thing is, even though not only single page applications, even though if you are developing with any other front end technologies, that also does same thing, right? That is also send the, dynamically get the content from web server to web page. But what is the specialty here? The specialty here is, instead of the default method of web browser loading entire new pages, it won't load the entire pages. Okay, this is where this thing comes under, right? Speed and performance. If the page is reloading, again it needs to load all the elements, right? Is that necessary? That is not necessary, right? So if in this case it won't reload the whole page, it won't reload the whole page. It just get the information where exactly it's required. That's it. Okay, that's where this performance comes into picture. Okay, and the second one is, it's a component based architecture. Okay, it's a component based architecture. Especially Angular. And the third one is, every Angular application must have one top level component referred to as root component. So whenever you are developing any application, Angular application, we must have one top level component as a root component. Okay, so later you can have several sub components or child components. Okay, so these are the features. The main feature is here single page application. So you no need to reload the whole web page or website. So wherever that wherever the data is required, that loads that page only. and these are all the features, because of this we are going to use Angular. And as I said, we there are typically we have two different types in Angular, right? So one is Angular JS, and then the second one is Angular. Okay, so these are the key things. Okay, the left hand side, architecture, language. These all are the key things. Okay, architecture, language, mobile dependency injection, routing, management, Angular CLI. Okay, so coming to architecture, Angular JS has been developed using MVC model view controller, but Angular it uses components and directives. Okay, so there, as I said before, there is one more architecture style, right? That is MVVM, model view model. That also uses in Angular. Okay, coming to language, so Angular JS was purely developed in JavaScript. TypeScript was not introduced actually, at that time. It was completely developed under JavaScript. But coming to Angular, so here we are using a TypeScript. And coming to mobile, it's not a mobile friendly. Of course, Angular JS is not mobile friendly, but Angular is mobile friendly. Okay, so dependency injection. So what is dependency injection? Dependency injection means it's like a tight coupling or loose coupling. Okay, if dependency injection has been implemented, which means that it's loosely coupled. Okay, if there is no dependency injection, which means tightly coupled. Okay, so without means if there is a dependency, that is like a tight dependency. Without one dependency, the other one cannot be executed. But coming to dependency injection means it's not like that. Routing, basically routing does the same thing in both Angular JS and Angular, but it was the way it was configured was different. Angular JS was configured by using at the rate route provider, but coming to Angular it was used at the rate route. So even management wise also, Angular JS was not well structured, because the source code was deeply not maintained. Okay, but coming to Angular, it is well structured. All these node modules and services, components, directives, everything was in that was well structured. And coming to Angular CLI, Angular is a command based platform. So that was not introduced. That was not introduced at the time of Angular JS. After Angular came into picture, this Angular CLI was introduced. So this is the major thing. The if you see the differences. So the architecture, the main thing is, whenever you're developing any framework, so the main thing is the architecture, right? So if you see this one, it was used MVC, and it uses component directives. So the complete architecture was rewritten. Okay, including language as well. Okay, these are the main key things. Okay, there were many changes, but these are the main keys, for comparing these two, Angular JS and Angular. Let's see, what is Angular JS, Node, npm, because these three things plays a key role when you're developing Angular application. Because Angular CLI, this is a command line interface. So whenever you're developing, whenever you want to create any new application, or whenever you want to deploy or build, at the time we should use Angular CLI. Okay, Angular CLI. So if you see this one, that used to initialize, develop, and maintain Angular applications directly from a command shell. So this is the command to install Angular CLI. So when you will install, npm means node packet manager, right? Node package manager. So first of all, you're supposed to have Node.js and npm before installing Angular CLI. Okay. Basically, and Node.js is a open source framework, right? Open source framework that is dynamically runtime environment, JavaScript based. But the Node.js will be used in Angular, like it is a server technology that allows you to run JavaScript on the server, and build server side web applications. Okay, so it mainly focus, as I said, Angular, we are going to use a TypeScript, right? We are going to use a TypeScript as a language in Angular. So the that TypeScript will be transpiled into JavaScript, without having Node.js. That cannot be possible, because it purely runs on JavaScript only. Because if you take any web application, that runs on JavaScript only. Okay, so Node.js helps in that way. So Angular, even if you need to install Node.js on your development machine, it's only of running, sorry, only for running the CLI. Once you build your app for production, you won't need Node.js. Okay, so npm is completely is a package manager, just like we have Maven, we have build tools, right? So to import the dependencies from other servers. So there is a server actually from through GitHub only. So all these packages will be maintained there. To get those packages into our application, we will be using npm. So the pack manager for the Node JavaScript platform, it puts modules in place so that Node can find them and manage dependency conflicts intelligently. It is extremely configurable to support a wide variety of use cases. Most commonly, it is used to publish, discover, install, and develop Node programs. For example, if you don't have npm, generally, how we do that, we will download that and we will keep it in our application. For example, you have a big application. If you take bank applications or financial applications, there will be multiple dependencies. Okay, so that time is how long it takes to download from server to your application. And of course there will be version changes as well in the future. So it's very difficult to maintain, right? So to avoid all these conflicts, npm helps in that way. Okay, we can easily get the packages which are required in our application. Okay, so once the whole application has been written in TypeScript, so Node.js is the one actually take care of the build. Okay, I mean, the whole thing will be run on the JavaScript. That needs to be transpiled into JavaScript. So Angular CLI is the one for getting, once you have the npm, so this is the one you need it. Okay, Angular CLI is one of the package that is required. So to run these commands, we will be using one command line interface, that is Angular CLI. These three are, these three are main things in our Angular application. Okay, so we should have these three things, otherwise you cannot go ahead with development part. So far we were talking about TypeScript. So Angular uses TypeScript. I mean, Angular uses TypeScript as a language. So what exactly TypeScript? Okay, so before TypeScript, if you see the JavaScript is the language used for client-side scripting to do client-side validations, DOM manipulation. So we take care of all those things, right? Ajax codes, etc. using JavaScript. Okay, and of course, JavaScript frameworks can be used for writing complex business logic that runs at the client side. Okay, but as the complexity of the JavaScript code increases, it gradually becomes difficult in coding and maintaining, right? So if it is small business logics that can be maintained, but if it is as long as growing, if you see the whole world moving to digital, right? So there will be, I mean, the functionality will be increased more and more, if you observe. So if the complexity increases, it's very difficult to maintain JavaScript. Okay, it's very difficult to maintain and coding as well. Okay, uh, so if you're not able to handle that coding and maintenance, obviously performance will be low. Okay, if the code was not maintained properly or was not written properly, definitely that leads to performance. Okay, so this is because of these limitations. the JavaScript language, there is no option to change the language for the client side scripting, as the browser understand only JavaScript. But the point is here basically, even though there is no other language can be understand by browser, because browser can understand only JavaScript. So what we can do here, so they were so in that way they have introduced this TypeScript. So the only solution is making more and more uh, clear on the, I mean, more and more clear on the particular technology, right? So the same solution they also implemented. So what they have done, the solution to choose language that is rich in features and the code can be converted to JavaScript. So since a browser can only understand JavaScript, they have added some more features which can be converted into JavaScript. So this process of converting the code written in one language to another is called transpilation, as I said. So TypeScript is the one. So TypeScript is one such language where its code can transpile to JavaScript. And one more disadvantage in JavaScript is most of the errors can be identified only at runtime. So if you guys worked on JavaScript, even though if you open any applications which have been developed in JavaScript, we see lot of errors in run script, right? So when you open this console, you may see lot of errors, because that cannot be identified at runtime when it was developed in JavaScript. But coming to TypeScript, no. So it overcomes that complication. So it will, whenever you are transpiling to JavaScript, that time only most of the errors will be fixed during that transpilation time itself. So therefore TypeScript saves the application development time, it maintains the code, it increases the performance, and syntax wise is very easy. Okay, so all these things as a part of I mean, those things have been implemented in TypeScript, but finally it will be transpiled into JavaScript only. Remember, browser can understand only JavaScript. So finally the superset of type JavaScript, which will be having high rich features compared to JavaScript for maintenance. So this is all about TypeScript language. This is language, okay? This is not a framework, this is a language. So, so far we have seen this Angular, the difference between Angular based versions, and the key things, I mean, the key things that are really required in our, I mean, to start with Angular. So we have seen the features and all. So this is actually, all about Angular. Okay, so whenever you're learning Angular, so the you supposed to know what are the features that are actually involved in this Angular, and you supposed to know, is there, because users, I mean, when the time of interview will ask you, have you worked on Angular JS or Angular? Okay, it is a kind of confusion, if you don't know how many types of Angular, I mean, how many types of Angular types in Angulars. Okay, so Angular JS and Angular. If you said if you say Angular JS, they feel it's a complete I mean, complete architecture and complete different way of implementation. Okay, they will ask you in that way. So if you said Angular, this is a different kind of implementation. So you must know how many types in Angular, and the history of that Angular, and the features involved, what languages that we are going to use. These are the very basic things, before start learning with Angular. In our I mean, in this course, we are going to give some realistic demo projects. I'm not saying this is a real project, but these are very realistic demo projects. Okay, so if you can able to develop these applications, I mean, if you are able to develop this project, you will get, I mean, all these topics may covered. Okay, learning and practicing with some examples is different. Developing applications from scratch is different. Okay, you will completely understand the means whatever we have discussed so far, right? Those features will be comes into our iStep file. Okay. So two projects that we are going to introduce. The first one is expense manager application, and the second is support ticket application. So I have actually these two are different path basically. So most of the topics will be covered. So when you develop these two applications, okay. So expense manager is basically this is like daily to daily expenses. Okay. So we don't know, we have five or six members of family. We don't know who is spending what and who is gaining what, so we can maintain in one single application. Okay. Like how much money that we are going to get on monthly basis, and what is the budget, and how much we are going to spend on each priority wise, so those things can be maintained through this expense manager. So that's how we know this project came into mind. And the second one is support ticket application. Actually, support ticket applications means we have different types of support ticket application. But here what I want to do is I want to do in a different way. This is a ticket application between a student and trainer. Okay. So if in case students, there will create some group of we will have group of courses and batches, right? So every batch can discuss in one particular application. So you train, I mean, student can enter their query, and trainer will answer that, so on priority basis. Okay. So those kind of things will do in this support ticket application. So this is project number 2. Okay, so coming to so whenever you're going to learn Angular, right? So you should have some prerequisites. This is from hardware side. Actually, I forgot to mention one more thing. Prerequisite from software side. It's good to have knowledge on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, it's good to have knowledge on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Bootstrap, and jQuery added advantage. Okay. So that is from that is from language side. So this is hardware specifically. Definitely, without internet, we can't do anything, right? So desktop or laptop is missing, I think. Yeah. So system requirements, we should have at least 16 GB. Okay, fine, and that's well and good. At least 8 GB is the minimum requirement, and including CPU 4 cores. You can take the screenshot if you want. So coming to IDE, so IDE is basically that's where we are going to do the development. Okay. It's an IDE environment, development environment. Okay. So we will be using Visual Studio Code. Okay. So we will be using Visual Studio Code, and we need the server called Node.js. As I said, we should have this Node.js server as well. Before whenever we start this Angular training, it's good to have all this hardware setup. And as I said, it's good to have knowledge on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Bootstrap, and jQuery as the added advantage. Okay, it's all about lab setup. After the whole training completed, and you will be doing some projects, right? So after done with all these areas, we will take some mock interviews. Okay. So mock interviews is not something we will recruit you. It's just like we will just mock you, like how much knowledge that you have gained during the training program, or project development. Okay, so we will guide you how much knowledge that you have gained, and how to practice, how to prepare for real interviews. Okay, so we will help you in that way. So we will come to know when we do this mock interviews. Okay, then we can guide you. I mean, that will help you to do well in your real interviews as well. Okay, so we will take some mock interviews as well. And coming to certifications, I mean, the only good thing or bad thing is in certifications wise, sadly Angular doesn't have any official certification because there is no direct authority of the ownership. And finally, once you are done with you know once you're done with the training project and everything, so MindMajix is going to provide the certificates. This is how it looks like. So yeah, so you will be getting the certificate as well of this training. Yeah, so thank you so much. Thanks for attending the demo. If you want to share any feedback or queries related to course or schedule, reference, cost, and payment options, so these are the contacts. This is the email contact, and these are the contacts from India and USA.